Hey everybody, this is Bruce, and today we're going to be talking about the I-134 Affidavit of Support with little or no money. Now, we get this question a lot, and so that's why I thought it would be fitting to actually address it here on a video. We actually got a question here from someone. We blocked out the name and the face, of course, because they might not want to be contacted or want anybody to know their personal information. But we get this same question over and over again. How can you go through the Affidavit of Support if you have no money or very little money? You basically are underneath the poverty guideline. And you get a lot of that from younger people, students, things like that. But before we start on that, I want to show you guys that we do have a visa approved book that you can find on Amazon. You just type in visa approved and we're the first people that pop up. There's the book right there, and it breaks down this entire process. Now right now it's only $1.99. By the time you see this video, it might be more money than that. We're actually going to boost it up. We're giving it away at this very low price because we want to give the folks that have been following us over the years a chance to actually purchase it before we boost up the price, as a way of saying thank you. But yeah, here's the book. It breaks the entire process up in 4 parts, and it just talks about all the stuff that we've done to get through this process and how other people that we've talked to, thousands of people over the years, have gotten through this process using these steps, as a matter of fact. We also want to tell you about our Visa Approved group on Facebook. Now, to find this group, if you didn't already know, you just go to Facebook, type in Visa Approved, and it should be one of the first groups that pops up. If not, it looks like this, and it has about 30,000 members, 28,000 something members right now at the time of this recording. And you can ask any question you want to the group for free. There's no charges or anything like that, but people helping one another, so as you can see here. And lastly, if you want more information on this process and other parts of this process, you can go to our group at uribruce.com or efilipinowomen.com. They both go to the same place. But you can just actually search for questions here, and a lot of times we put it on our site. Quick disclaimer, I am not a lawyer. I'm not an authorized consultant. What you're about to see is my opinion, my experience going through this process, because Yuri, my wife, who is a foreign fiance, now my wife of 3-4 years, now we've been here in the United States living together. This is based on my experience and based off of all the other people, thousands of people that I've talked to over the years, and it's worked for us. So you should take everything I say with a grain of salt, meaning you should double check everything I say. This is your future we're talking about. So this is not my future, this is your future. So you should double check anything anyone says about this process. Alright, let's get to it. So first of all, I want to show you this question. I just thought it was pretty important to show you the actual question that somebody came up with, so that you know that you're not alone in this process. And this happens to lots of other people. So anyway, she said, my fiance is very young and we're currently not working. He's looking for a job right now, if that helps. But he's going to get a job that pays enough to actually meet the income requirement. So that's good that she knows that there is an income requirement for the K-1 visa process, which is what we're talking about. And she says he has assets, has stocks, has a home, has a possible co-sponsor as a second option. So that's actually very good that she knows this process. Some people go into this K-1 visa process not knowing that there is a requirement, and I want to tell you about that real quick. And this applies to the K-1. Now, the reason why I think it's kind of confusing for some people is because when you're doing the K-1, all you know initially, most people just know I need to do the I-129F application. I need to put in proof that we have a relationship. They already know all that stuff, but what they don't know is in the second part of this process, they're going to ask you, how much income do you make? The first part of the process, when the U.S. petitioner is petitioning to have their fiance come to the U.S., they're mostly focused on, okay, do you have a real relationship? What's your name? What's your beneficiary foreign fiance's name? Are there any kids coming to? Does she have any kids? Do you have any kids? Were you previously married? They're wanting to know, like, did you meet? How did you meet? Things like that, and you have to actually put in proof, of course, and I'm assuming you already know that. But The second part is where you get approved, right? You send in your package and all the evidence, supporting evidence with it. And then your fiance has to actually put together a package that she or he is going to bring to the U.S. Embassy in their home country. And one of the things that they ask, just one of the things, there's many other things that they ask for, but one of them is they want proof that the U.S. petitioner makes at least 100% of the poverty guideline. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you this form right here. This site right here, if you go to aspe.hhs.gov/poverty-guidelines, it will take you to the current poverty guideline. And so as you can see, it's broken up first of all into 3 different tables. And why is it broken up into 3 different tables? Because the first one is for the first 48 states, which most people, this will apply to most people. The second part is broken into Alaska and Hawaii, because they're in a whole different bracket. It costs more money to live in those 2 places. So let's start off with their situation. They have 3 people. It's the foreign fiance, the U.S. petitioner, and a child. So they have to make at least $20,780 a year, right? So they have to prove that they make that amount of money. Now the good thing here is that she said she has a couple of options. One of which is a co-sponsor, which you can do. And there's been a lot of speculation on whether or not you can do a co-sponsor. But the answer is yes, you can. And here's how I know that. You can see if somebody else has used a co-sponsor. Now, I wouldn't have to do this because I talk to people all the time who've done co-sponsors, and it's working in Manila and other places all over the world. It does work, but I'm on visajourney.com and I'm on their forum and I'm asking co-sponsor, right? And you'll see going all the way back as late as 10 years whether or not people have used co-sponsor. And the answer is yes, they have used co-sponsors. Here's one. Does Manila Consulate approve K-1 visas on a joint sponsor or co-sponsor? And they're saying I'm an American, apply for the K-1 visa, will have his parents as his co-sponsor and he doesn't meet the income requirements. And they're going to the Philippines. And one of the super elite members says Manila never stopped accepting co-sponsors. I sure would like to know where this information is coming from because it's wrong. Yeah, so for some reason people keep saying that they don't accept co-sponsors, and I'm not sure why, but we know several people who accept co-sponsors. And if you want proof, you can see other people on Visa Approved on our site who have used co-sponsor, and they'll tell you, yeah, this is how we did the co-sponsor. And all you'll do is just do 2 I-134s, which I'll show you in a second here. You do 2 I-134 Affidavit of Support documents, then you have supporting documents to support that this person makes X amount of money. And that's pretty much it. But so that's one of the options that she has, is to actually get a co-sponsor. That's one of their options. Now, if they wanted to just go off of the petitioner's money, then they'll have to wait until he makes enough money, and then wait until he can prove that he makes enough money. So he'd have to go get a job, make at least $20,780 a year, and then have to bring in maybe bank statements showing that these are the deposits over the last month that the person got paid, or 2-3 months, right? So that's one thing that they could do. They could also bring in the letter, the acceptance letter for the job, saying that yes, this person makes X amount of dollars. If they don't have the tax returns yet, they can use their previous tax returns, and maybe it says 0 on it, but they can also bring in their current income level. I can tell you what I would do. What I would do if I maybe just got hired in a new job and it barely is still like 15 grand, but I have to make 20 grand. What I would do, or even if I made 20 grand, but I just got the job and I only had evidence of 3 months, like I had my checks, I'd have my bank statement that showed that I got paid for the last 3 months. I would supply that, right? And then I would also use a co-sponsor. And the reason why is because they ask the embassy asks for tax documentation as proof. For me, just to kind of CYA, just to kind of cover myself, I would have a co-sponsor. I would have my current job and evidence that I have a current job and evidence that I'm receiving an income from that current job. And then I also have a co-sponsor and an evidence that my co-sponsor makes a certain amount with their taxes. And let me just show you what I mean by that. Here's how I absolutely know that they ask for tax returns. When Yuri, we got approved, like NOA got approved, right? NOA 2, I sent my I-129F package to USCIS. They approved it. And then they sent the package over to National Visa Center. National Visa Center sent it to the appropriate embassy. And then they sent us a letter. And the letter had all these things that they wanted from Yuri. They had DS-160. And you can find this whole thing at eFilipino Women. I'll put the link in the description below. But passport, they wanted birth certificate. So then they said they don't want no copy. They want the original birth certificate from the NSO, which is in the Philippines. They want NBI clearance, also original document. They told us which things can be copies and which ones can be original. And for the Philippines, mostly original. If they say they want an original, then give them an original. Copies, see, of the court or prison records, if you have any, if applicable. And let me just scroll down. There's lots of other things here, and you can check those out. And also, Yuri did a video about that. But one thing I'm kind of focused on is this one right here, K. Evidence of support. Well, they specifically asked for federal tax returns. The ITR, income tax returns, which is Form 1040, right? It's a filled out document, signed, has how much money you made on it. And then the W-2 goes with that. So those two forms is what they need. So what I would do if I was in her situation is I would put what my fiance, you have to do two. You have to do one I-134, which I'll show you right here. Let's just put this on the screen here. You have to do I-134. And okay, let's just grab the I-134. There is the I-134 instruction. We want the I-134 document. So you're gonna have to do two I-134s. One, even if you make $0, even if the U.S. petitioner makes $0. One for the U.S. petitioner who makes $0 or not enough, and then one for the co-sponsor, right? With their name, you'll have to put the petitioner will be the co-sponsor. Let's say my dad, which is let's say his family name is Brown, and he's basically filling this out. And what I would do is I would just fill it out for my dad. I would just fill it out for him. Bruce Senior. Well, let's just say Fred. No middle initial. And you just fill all this stuff out. The sponsor's mailing address. You know, it's pretty if they use other names, you put that in there. In the case of some women, they do use other names because they were married and they had a separate name that's used. But sponsor, their address, their mailing address, you put that in there. Now, if they have the same physical address, you'd say yes right there, right? And then you'd have the street number or their physical address if it's different from the mailing address. You'd have their birthday. Let's say it was 6/14/1950. I'm signing this for my dad, right? My dad would sponsor me. He would have to sign it. My father would have to sign it. And then he'd have to prove that he makes that money with tax returns from the previous year, W-2 from the previous year, or the most current year if you're in that year. Well, it's always the last year, so it would be 2017. We're in 2018. It would be 2017, right? If it's 2019, you'd be getting the tax returns, obviously, from 2018. So the most current tax returns, and then you'd want to also provide evidence that he makes that kind of income. Like that could be like bank statements saying that he makes the money going into the deposits going into the account. And then also I would provide like the benefits, like you can get like a benefits form from the retirement, from wherever you get retirement from. They'll give you an official form that says this person makes this amount a month. and then you would provide that also with this I-129, with the I-134 signed, and take that. The foreign fiance would take that with her to the U.S. Embassy. So let me just see if there's any gotchas in here. So most of the first part of the form is for the petitioner or their co-sponsor or joint sponsor, whatever you want to call it. The second part is for the beneficiary. So this is where it would be Sincero, because we're not married yet, right? So we have been going through this process, and she's a fiance at this point, so it'd be Yuri. And so up here would be my dad's name, because he is the sponsor for this form. And then down here on part 2, it would be my fiance's name. And then I would do another I-134, which would have my name on it, Bruce Brown, and it will have Yuri as the beneficiary as well. So the same information here would be there. So the third part asks about, okay, how much do you work? What's your employer, right? So if I'm employed, I would put I'm employed as an electrician, plumber, or whatever the case is, right? If I'm not employed, I would leave that X blank. And so leave that blank. Self-employed. If I'm self-employed, it means I have a business. I would put the name of the business. Employed as a plumber. Let's say I was an independent guy making all kinds of money from a plumber. Or if maybe I was an Uber driver, and I would put I'm a transportation. I would put Uber driver or taxi driver or whatever right there. And then I put the street name where if I'm employed, you put the current location of the place that you're employed at. And all this information here, of course. And then you put your current annual income. So for my father, let's say my father made $20,900 because he's retired, so that's how much he makes in his retirement per year. Then I would have to prove that he makes $20,900 a year, right? Now if it was mine, of course, I wouldn't put any. I would put 0 because I don't have an income at all. And then I would put here, let's say maybe I had $500 in there. Maybe the financial institute. I have a checking account that has $500 in it. If I have personal property, I would. So this one this one's kind of strange because basically you will value all your personal property. That's like your stereo equipment, your electronics, your car if you have one, your boat if you have one, all that stuff. Let's say all that stuff totals to $20,000. And then let's say I have stocks. Let's say I have $30,000 in stocks that's floating around out there. And then let's say, conversely, if you have stocks, maybe you're a day trader, you could say I'm self-employed as a day trader, and you could say I make X amount a year, you could say, let's say as a day trader you make $6,000 a year or something, I don't know. And then you have to provide tax documentation proving that you make that much money. But let's just say we make 0. And let's just keep going here. I have life insurance. If you have that, you put that there. If nothing, you just, nope, I don't have it. So I'm going to put 0. I own real estate. Okay, so this is interesting. So the person who contacted us does have real estate. So let's say his property is valued at $120,000. And this actually helps the petitioner because that's one less thing that you have to worry about. You have a place to house this person and you have a source of income. Maybe the house was given to you. So maybe you don't even have debt on the house. That's an even bigger plus. So here the amount of mortgage, let's say it was 0 because the house is gifted to you. That's a huge plus because you have a place to live, which brings down how much you need to live on. And then you put the address of the place that you're of the real estate. And then dependents. If I had a kid, I have 2 kids, so I would put my 2 kids' names here. These are dependents that I support financially. Like, here's another question that I get about this one. Let's say that I have 2 kids, but they're not with me. They're my biological kids, but they're being taken care of by my spouse. Or one of them's being taken care of by my spouse. I wouldn't put them here because that dependent is not supported by me. It says dependent information. The following persons are dependent on me for support. Now, if they're not even if they're your biological kids, if for whatever you got a divorce and they're being taken care of by another legal guardian, you wouldn't put them on here because it says dependents upon that depend upon me for support. So in this case, they don't, for financial reasons purposes, they don't depend on you. So you wouldn't put them there if they don't depend on you. And if they do depend on you, here's the thing. Let's say it's a daughter. I'd put their name, given name, last name, and then I would put, this is my daughter, and her date of birth right here, 2009, whatever. And then what are they partially dependent on me or totally dependent on me? Let's say she lives with me. I take care of all the bills. She eats and does everything in my house. It's her house. So I would say wholly dependent. Let's say it's joint custody where she lives with me part-time. So then you would put partial dependent. So that's another question that we get from every now and then. But that's what that means. Like, she's partially dependent on me. So the reason why that's important is because when the consular officer who's talking to your foreign fiance is talking, when they're talking together, the consular officer is trying to assess how much money you have available to you and if that's enough to take care of your foreign fiance. That's all they're trying to figure out. So just keep that in mind. What I did was seeing this from their perspective. They just want to know that the foreign fiance is not going to be dependent on the government once they get here. Because here's another thing that happens. This is rare, but it's happened more than once. I get contacted, Yuri and I get contacted by someone saying, hey, we're in the United States. We're here and we just have a question, like, how do we don't have enough money to live. We barely have enough money for food. We barely have enough money to pay our rent. How do we get a green card? Or we've already applied for the green card, but now we have to prove, and the green card, by the way, is over $1,000, right? So some people don't have that kind of money just laying around. That's a problem. So you should not come here, seeing it from the government's perspective. They don't want you to come here and be destitute or be living on the streets. So it's actually very practical that they do this. And I think it's the best thing to do, because I'm telling you, when people ask me this, like, what do? I don't have a job. I just spent my last $1,000 to get the green card, and my wife doesn't have a job. I don't have income. We're barely scraping by. And they ask me, like, what do I do? And we have a kid. I'm like, what can you do? What can you do? I'd usually tell them what I would do, which is to go get 2-3 jobs and make enough money. That's what I personally would do. I would try to find a way for my wife to make money, maybe babysitting off the books or something, bring in a little bit of income. I don't know, but what do you do? So that's seeing it from their perspective, government's perspective. They just don't want you to come to the United States and not have money, and be struggling to live. So that's all if you see it from their perspective, the consular officer's perspective, then you'll figure out, okay, you'll know, okay, I already have a home and I own it. So number one, they won't be homeless. Number two, okay, I don't have a job, but I have this extra income coming from day trading, and it's enough for us to live on. It's X amount of dollars. Or my father is wealthy. He's retired and he's wealthy and he has 2 or 3 properties. That's a co-sponsor. If you live off of that income and those assets, then yeah, that's something that can factor into it. But keep this in mind. When you're going through this, what they look at as their main source of their main thing that they look at is the guideline. Let me just bring up the poverty guideline. The poverty guideline. So this is going to be your bar. If you have 3 people, and let me just explain this real quick. If you have 3 people, they're looking at this number right here. If it's just you and your spouse that's going to be living together, they look at this. And this is just a guide. They have some flexibility in there. So you should know that if there's any other way you can prove that you make income, then you should do it. So if there's 2 people, you only need $16,460. Another option would be, like, if you're in a rush to be here and your child has a place to live in the Philippines and there's no problems, or in Dominican Republic or wherever, then you might want to consider just leaving them there for now, because you have a whole year to leave them over there and then bring them over within that year. It's, we have to bring them over within a year. You have a year to get your stuff together in the United States. Make at least $20,000. Actually, when you get here, you have to make more than this. It's 125%, but we'll talk about that on another video. But for the purpose of getting to the U.S., you have to make this amount if it's 3 people, this amount if it's 2 people, this amount if it's 4 people, 25,100. This amount, and it goes up every year. It's getting harder and harder to do this, by the way. So, well, actually, it might have gone down this year. I'm not sure about that. I think that's about it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us or ask the questions on Visa Approved on our group. You can also message me directly. If I do use your information, nobody will know who you are. Nobody will know that you contacted me or this is your particular situation. But this is a way for us to help many people, and I hope that this helped you out a little bit. One last thing that I'll leave you with is another document that can help you out through this process, which I used a lot, which is the instruction, I-134 instruction, which walks you through this whole form step by step, and any questions you have, it'll actually answer them for you. So that's it, guys. That's all I had to say, and we'll see you on the next one.